Did you know medieval life wasn't just about plagues and poverty? Were there sparks of happiness even in the deepest shadows of the 13th century? Prepare to dive into the surprising sources of joy for the elderly of the Middle Ages. Number 10. Family Power Up. For the medieval elderly, one of the most vibrant and ever-present sources of joy came from the very heart of their existence. Their family. And within that sprawling, often multi-generational household, the undisputed champions of pure, unadulterated happiness were the grandchildren. The medieval world was a harsh landscape where life was often short and unpredictable. To have lived long enough to see your children's children, to witness the continuation of your own bloodline, was not just a biological fact. It was a profound blessing, a testament to resilience. This blessing brought with it a unique kind of warmth that thawed even the coldest medieval winter. A grandmother, perhaps named Elara, her hands calloused from decades of weaving and tending the fire, would find immense pleasure in simply watching her youngest grandchild. A toddler named Thomas chase a wooden ball across the packed earth floor of their cottage. The simple sight of his chubby legs, the sound of his gleeful squeals filled her heart with a joy that transcended the daily grind. She might sit by the hearth, her spinning wheel idle for a moment, and offer a soft, worn piece of cloth for the child to play with, her eyes crinkling at the corners as he clutched it tight. These small, fleeting moments of connection were precious beyond measure. They were reminders of life's endless cycle of growth and renewal, and of the enduring legacy she was leaving behind. Grandfathers, too, though perhaps outwardly more reserved, found deep satisfaction in their grandchildren. An old man, perhaps named Osbert, who had spent his life toiling in the fields, might now teach his grandson, a boy named Finn, how to carve a simple toy from a piece of wood. His gnarled fingers, once powerful enough to wield an axe, would now guide Finn's small, clumsy hand, showing him the careful strokes, the patience required to shape the raw material. This act of teaching, of passing down skills and knowledge that had kept their family alive for generations, was a powerful affirmation of his continued worth. He was not just an old man. He was a living bridge to the future, imparting the wisdom that only age could bestow. Finn's excited shout when his simple wooden horse finally took shape brought a quiet smile to Osbert's weathered face, a joy as deep as any harvest feast. The role of the elderly in the family was not merely observational. It was integral. They were often the primary caregivers for the youngest children, while the parents worked in the fields or at their trades. This constant interaction, this daily immersion in the energy and innocence of childhood, kept their spirits vital. An elderly woman might spend hours telling stories to her grandchildren, tales of saints and heroes, of mythical beasts, and cunning rogues. Stories passed down through generation. These narratives not only entertained but also instilled moral lessons and cultural values, cementing her position as a living library of family and community history. The children's wide-eyed wonder, their eager questions, and their sleepy sighs as they drifted off to sleep to the rhythm of her voice filled her with a profound sense of purpose. This was a contribution that no amount of physical labor could replace. Scholars of medieval family life often note the deep interdependence of generations where the elderly, though physically less able, provided essential childcare and cultural education. The presence of grandchildren also served as a constant reminder of continuity in a world where death was a frequent visitor. Every new birth was a triumph. Every child who survived to walk and talk was a testament to the family's resilience. For the elderly, these young lives represented hope for the future, the promise that their family's name, their traditions, their land, and their legacy would endure. It was a tangible proof that their struggles and sacrifices had not been in vain. The sound of children's voices echoing through the small homestead, the sight of them growing stronger, learning new things, and mirroring the faces of their parents and grandparents, filled the elderly with an enduring sense of accomplishment. This feeling of being part of a larger, ongoing narrative, a continuous thread woven through time, was a powerful antidote to the loneliness and isolation that could sometimes accompany old age. Family gatherings, whether for a simple evening meal or a more elaborate festival, often centered around the respect and inclusion of the elders. The elderly would be given the most comfortable seats by the fire, the choicest morsels of food, and their opinions sought on matters of importance. Surrounded by their children and grandchildren, hearing the hubbub of their bustling family, feeling the warmth of their collective presence, was a profound source of joy. It was a celebration of their lives, their endurance, and the vibrant, living legacy they had created. The intermingling of generations, the babble of young voices mixed with the deeper tones of adults, and the occasional quiet chuckle of an elder, painted a picture of communal strength and warmth. This was not a passive observation. It was an active participation in the continuation of life itself, a life that flowed directly from them. The laughter of a grandchild was often described as the sweetest music to an old ear, a melody that spoke of life, of hope, and of an unending future. Number 9. Storytime legends. In a world without printed books, without widespread literacy, and certainly without streaming services, the medieval elderly held a unique and deeply revered position as the living libraries of their communities. They were the keepers of tales, the guardians of history, and the undisputed masters of entertainment. This role, far from being a simple pastime, bestowed upon them immense respect and brought an incredible flow of joy to their later years. To be the one everyone gathered around, eager to listen, their faces illuminated by the flickering firelight, was a powerful affirmation of their enduring value. An old woman, perhaps known as Morwen, with eyes that had seen a century of seasons, held the power to transport her audience. She might tell of the brave knights who once defended their local lord, or the cunning witches who supposedly lived in the dark woods beyond the village. She knew the ancient legends of the saints' stories of miraculous healings and divine interventions, which comforted and inspired her listeners. Her voice, perhaps a little raspy from age, would rise and fall with the drama of the narrative, captivating young and old alike. Children would sit spellbound, their eyes wide with wonder, while even the adults would listen intently, perhaps hearing a detail they had forgotten or a new twist to a familiar tale. Her stories were not just entertainment. They were lessons in morality, reminders of shared heritage, and anchors in a world that often felt chaotic. The warmth of the attention, the silent respect of the gathered crowd, and the feeling of passing on vital knowledge brought a profound satisfaction to Morwen. A grizzled old man, perhaps named Sinric, a former soldier or a seasoned traveler from his youth, would possess a different repertoire. He might recount tales of far-off lands he had glimpsed, exaggerating the dangers and wonders for dramatic effect. He could speak of battles fought, of cunning strategies, or of moments of unexpected bravery. His voice, perhaps a low rumble, would draw listeners closer, leaning in to catch every word. He might share practical lore too, like the best times to plant certain crops, or the signs of changing weather patterns, knowledge gleaned from a lifetime of observation. His storytelling was a bridge between generations, connecting the present community to a past they had not lived, but that shaped their identity. The appreciation in the eyes of his listeners, the quiet nods of understanding from the older men, and the hushed awe from the younger ones, were a profound validation of his life experience. He was not just recalling memories, he was shaping the collective understanding of their world. Medieval scholars, like those who studied early English folklore, note the prevalence of oral traditions where elders were central to the transmission of knowledge and cultural identity. The act of storytelling was deeply communal. It was not a solitary activity, but a shared experience that bound the community together. In the long, dark evenings, especially during the harsh winter months, gathering around the hearth to hear an elder's stories was a cherished ritual. The glow of the fire would dance on their faces as they listened, their breaths forming small clouds in the cold air. The stories provided comfort, education, and a vital connection to the past. They reminded everyone of their shared roots, their common heroes, and the values that defined their community. For the elderly, being the center of such a beloved tradition was an immense source of joy. They were not merely respected, they were essential. Their voices, their memories, their wisdom kept the spirit of the community alive. Beyond formal storytelling, the elderly were also the go-to source for local history and genealogy. Who built that old mill? How did that stream get its name? Who was your great-grandfather? The elders knew. They could trace family lineages back several generations, understanding the complex web of relationships that made up the village. They remembered the great floods, the devastating plagues, the good harvests, and the times of famine. They remembered the lives and deaths of countless individuals, their stories woven into the very fabric of the community. This deep well of memory made them invaluable resources, particularly when disputes arose or when new traditions needed to be understood in the context of old ones. Their recall of past events, their ability to link current circumstances to historical precedents, brought them immense standing. This position of living chronicler, revered for their deep knowledge, filled them with a quiet but powerful joy, knowing they held the keys to their community's past. The wisdom they imparted went beyond mere facts. It included practical advice, moral guidance, and life lessons learned through trial and error. An old woman might advise a young mother on soothing a crying baby with a traditional lullaby, or an old man might offer a farmer tips on repairing a broken tool using methods long forgotten by the younger generation. These were not just pieces of information. They were embodiments of a lifetime of lived experience, distilled into practical wisdom, the gratitude in the eyes of those they helped. The quiet respect with which their advice was received solidified their role as respected mentor. This active contribution, even in their later years, to the well-being and continuation of their community, was a profound source of purpose and happiness. They were not just telling stories. They were shaping lives, guiding futures, and ensuring the continuity of their world. Number 8. Divine connection. In the medieval world, where life was often precarious and filled with uncertainty, the spiritual realm offered a profound source of comfort, hope, and community. For the elderly who had weathered many storms and were increasingly aware of their own mortality, their religious faith often deepened, becoming an even more central pillar of their existence. This intimate connection with the divine, combined with the strong community bonds forged through shared religious practices, brought immense joy and solace. It was a beacon of light in a world that could often feel dark and unforgiving. Attending church was not merely a Sunday obligation. It was the weekly heartbeat of the community. For the elderly, it became an even more meaningful ritual. The familiar scent of incense, the echoing chants of the priest, the colorful stained glass windows depicting biblical scenes, these elements provided a powerful sensory experience that connected them to something larger. They had seen these rituals performed countless times throughout their lives, but with age, the familiarity often deepened into profound reverence. The hymns they sang, the prayers they recited, were not just words. They were expressions of a lifetime of faith, of hope, and of submission to a benevolent higher power. This shared spiritual experience with all the generations gathered together provided a sense of belonging that was both comforting and uplifting. The quiet satisfaction of being part of this ancient, enduring tradition brought a deep sense of peace. The importance of the church in daily medieval life is well documented by various historical texts, showing its central role from birth to death. Beyond the formal services, personal piety was also a rich source of joy. An elderly woman might spend quiet hours in contemplative prayer, perhaps clutching a simple wooden rosary, its beads worn smooth by countless repetitions. She might reflect on her life, seeking forgiveness for past wrongs and expressing gratitude for blessings received. This direct personal communion with God offered immense comfort and a sense of being truly seen and heard. It was a private solace that transcended physical ailments or worldly worries. For many, the belief in an afterlife, a paradise free from earthly suffering, was not just a doctrine, but a living, breathing hope that illuminated their final years. This hope allowed them to face the unknown with courage, and even a sense of eager anticipation, transforming what might have been fear into profound peace. The church also served as a vital social hub, and for the elderly, it was a place where they remained deeply connected to their community. After Mass, they would linger in the churchyard, exchanging news, offering advice, and simply enjoying the companionship of their neighbors. They might share stories, laugh at old jokes, or offer words of comfort to someone in distress. This sense of communal belonging, reinforced by shared faith and shared rituals, was a powerful antidote to loneliness. They were not isolated figures. They were integral members of a collective spiritual journey. The informal conversations, the shared meals on feast days sponsored by the church, the sense of mutual support. These elements wove a strong social fabric around them, ensuring they were cared for and valued. This constant interaction, rooted in a shared belief system, fostered a pervasive sense of warmth and security. For some, their deep faith led to acts of charity, even if their own means were meager. An elderly person might spend time mending clothes for poorer villagers, offering a comforting word to the sick, or sharing a small portion of their meager food with those less fortunate. These acts of selfless giving, driven by Christian compassion, brought a unique and powerful sense of joy. It was the joy of living out their faith, of making a tangible difference in the lives of others, and of accumulating spiritual merit for the afterlife. This active participation in the welfare of their community, embodying the virtues taught by the Church, gave their later years a profound sense of purpose and fulfillment. Pilgrimages, even short ones to a local shrine or a nearby monastery, could also be a source of profound joy. For those with enough strength or with the support of family, these journeys were not just physical exertions, but spiritual quests. The act of walking, of overcoming obstacles, and of arriving at a sacred site filled them with a sense of accomplishment and renewed faith. They might encounter other pilgrims sharing stories and prayers along the way, forging new bonds of spiritual camaraderie. The sight of a revered relic, the feeling of kneeling in a sacred space, the belief in the possibility of a miraculous healing or a divine vision, these experiences could be truly draught offering. While not all elderly could undertake long pilgrimages, even a short visit to their parish church for extra prayer or contemplation brought immense spiritual nourishment. The sense of grace received, the feeling of being closer to the divine, was a powerful and recurring source of internal happiness. Number 7. Nature's chill zone. In the medieval world, where life was inextricably linked to the rhythms of the earth, the elderly, freed from the most strenuous physical labors, often found a profound and simple joy in reconnecting with nature. This was not the hurried utilitarian connection of a younger farmer needing to wring a living from the soil, but a contemplative, appreciative engagement with the natural world. It was a deep understanding born of a lifetime of observation, a quiet reverence for the beauty and resilience of the world around them. This intimacy with nature, often overlooked by the bustling young, became a deep wellspring of peace and contentment. An old woman, perhaps named Adeline, no longer tasked with endless hours of hoeing or harvesting, might spend her days tending a small herb garden by the cottage door. She would meticulously cultivate thyme, lavender, and chamomile, herbs used for medicine, cooking, and scenting homes. The feeling of the soft earth beneath her fingers, the vibrant green of new sprouts, the delicate scent of blooming flowers, these sensory experiences brought a calm, steady joy. She would watch the busy bees flitting from blossom to blossom, gathering nectar, a miniature world of industry and life playing out before her eyes. The knowledge that these plants nurtured by her aged hands would bring comfort or flavor to her family's meals, added a layer of profound satisfaction. It was a tangible connection to the cycle of growth and sustenance, a quiet affirmation of life's enduring power. The wisdom of nature's cycles learned over many decades truly became their source of comfort. A grizzled old man, perhaps, named Edwig, who had spent his youth clearing forests and plowing fields, might now spend hours simply sitting by the nearby stream. He would watch the water flow ceaselessly, an endless river of time. He would observe the trout darting beneath the surface, the dragonflies hovering in the dapple sunlight. The sounds of the natural world, the gentle gurgle of the stream, the rustling of leaves in the trees, the chirping of unseen birds, would fill his ears, creating a symphony of peace. He might recognize the calls of various birds, understanding their habits, or identify the trees by their bark and leaves, having seen them through countless seasons. This deep familiarity with his surroundings, cultivated over a lifetime, brought a quiet joy, a sense of belonging to the very landscape. He was not just in nature. He was a part of it, his own life cycles mirroring the ebb and flow of the seasons. Medieval texts, such as agricultural treatises and folk tales, often describe the deep reliance and connection of people to their natural environment. The changing of the seasons, a constant and powerful force in medieval life, offered a continuous panorama of beauty and anticipation. The vibrant green of spring promising new life and an end to winter's harsh grip brought a hopeful joy. The long, warm days of summer with fields ripening under the sun provided a sense of abundance and ease. The rich tapestry of autumn colors, as leaves turned to gold and crimson, reminded them of the earth's bounty and the cycle of harvest. And even winter, with its stark beauty and the quiet stillness of snow-covered landscapes, offered its own unique charm, a time for rest and introspection by the fire. For the elderly, these seasonal shifts were not just markers of time. They were living expressions of God's grandeur and the enduring resilience of the world. Each season brought its own unique pleasure, a fresh perspective on the familiar. The simple act of observing the sky became a profound pleasure. The vast expanse of the heavens, the ever-changing cloud formations, the fiery sunsets, and the silent star-studded nights, these celestial spectacles offered a sense of wonder and connection. An old woman might point out the constellations to her grandchildren, telling them the ancient stories associated with the stars, linking their small world to the grander cosmos. An old man might predict the next day's weather by the color of the evening sky, a skill owned by decades of direct observation. This daily engagement with the celestial sphere, seeing it as both a guide and a source of beauty, transcended the earthly hardships and offered a sense of timelessness and connection to something eternal. Even the most mundane aspects of nature held beauty for the discerning elder: the smell of fresh rain on dry earth, the feel of soft moss underfoot, the taste of a wild berry foraged from the hedgerow. These simple sensory experiences, perhaps once taken for granted, now became moments of exquisite pleasure. They were reminders of the richness of life, of the earth's endless generosity, and of the quiet wonders that permeated their existence. The deep connection to the natural world, nurtured through a lifetime of interdependence, provided a constant source of comfort, wonder, and profound satisfaction. For the medieval elderly, it was a joy that required no wealth, no grand gestures, only an open heart and eyes willing to see the beauty in every leaf and every drop of dew. This intimate relationship with the earth brought a deep, unwavering peace. Number 6. Cratting royalty. Even in their later years, when the heaviest burdens of physical labor were often passed to younger hands, the medieval elderly found immense joy and purpose in their continued contributions to crafts and skilled work. This was not just about making useful items, it was about maintaining a sense of worth, preserving ancient skills, and experiencing the deep satisfaction of creating something with their own hands. In a world where every item was made by hand, the skills of the elderly were not just appreciated. They were revered, making them crafting royalty in their own right. An old woman, her eyesight perhaps dimming, but her hands still nimble with decades of practiced movement, might sit by the hearth, meticulously spinning wool into fine yarn. The rhythmic hum of the spinning wheel, the soft feel of the raw wool transforming into a smooth, even thread, brought a quiet contentment. This yarn would then be used to weave cloth for their family's clothes, blankets, or sack. She knew the precise tension, the subtle feel of the fiber learned over a lifetime. This skill was vital, ensuring the family remained clothed and warm through harsh winters. The sight of her children and grandchildren, wrapped in the warmth of a blanket she had helped create, filled her with a profound sense of purpose and pride. She was not just spinning, she was contributing to the very survival and comfort of her loved ones. A joy that transcended simple productivity. Early medieval records and archaeological finds consistently show the centrality of textile production in homes. A grizzled old man, his fingers perhaps gnarled with arthritis, but still possessing remarkable dexterity, might spend his days mending tools, carving wooden utensils, or weaving baskets. He knew the precise grain of the wood for a sturdy handle, the right type of willow branch for a strong basket, skills honed over decades of practical application, the satisfying sound of wood being shaped under his knife, the familiar scent of sawdust, or the flexible resistance of the willow as it yielded to his touch, were deeply comforting. He might teach a young boy how to sharpen a scythe or how to mend a broken fence post, patiently guiding his clumsy hands. The knowledge that his skills kept the farm running, kept the family fed, and prevented waste, was a powerful affirmation of his enduring value. The joy came not just from the finished product, but from the process of creation itself, the mastery of a craft that was essential to life. These crafts were often interwoven with the daily life of the household and community, making the elders indispensable. An elderly woman might be the village's unofficial healer, knowing which herbs to gather for various ailments, how to prepare salves, and how to set a simple bone. Her knowledge, passed down orally through generations, was a lifeline in a world without formal medicine. People would come to her seeking her wisdom, offering small tokens of gratitude. This active role in the well-being of others, providing comfort and healing, was a profound source of joy and respect. The trust placed in her, the relief on the faces of those she helped, brought a deep sense of purpose and fulfillment. Similarly, an old man might be the designated storyteller, weaving tales of their ancestors, local legends and moral parables. While this might not seem like a craft in the traditional sense, it was a highly skilled performance, requiring memory, dramatic flair, and an understanding of his audience. His stories were not just entertainment, they were the means by which cultural memory was preserved and passed on. The rapt attention of his listeners, the eager questions from children, and the respectful silence of adults confirmed his unique position as a cultural artisan. This contribution, vital for the continuity of their shared identity, brought him immense satisfaction and solidified his place at the heart of the community. The passing down of these skills was also a significant source of joy. Teaching a grandchild how to card wool, how to recognize edible plants, or how to tie a complex knot was an act of legacy. It ensured that the knowledge and traditions would not die with them, but would continue to serve future generations. The patience required, the shared laughter over a clumsy attempt, the quiet pride in seeing a young hand master a difficult technique, these moments were filled with a unique kind of happiness. It was the joy of mentorship, of knowing their lifetime of accumulated wisdom was being put to good use, guaranteeing the future of their family and community. This active role as teachers and preservers of essential knowledge provided an enduring sense of purpose and immense satisfaction. In essence, the elderly were not just consumers of resources. They were vital contributors to the medieval economy and social structure through their continued craftsmanship. Their skilled hands, their deep knowledge, and their patient guidance ensured that their communities remained self-sufficient and their traditions alive. This enduring productivity, however small in scale compared to their youth, was a powerful affirmation of their worth, bringing them a deep, quiet joy that sustained them through their golden years. Their crafts were not just objects, they were embodiments of their enduring spirit and invaluable contributions. Number 5. Feast mode activated. In the often austere reality of medieval life, large communal feasts and celebrations were rare. Precious occasions, they were not just about food and drink, they were powerful moments of community, abundance, and joyous revelry. For the elderly, these events were particularly special, offering a much-needed respite from daily hardships and providing an unparalleled opportunity for social connection, good cheer, and a profound sense of belonging. The anticipation alone could spark joy for weeks, and the memories would last much longer. The preparation for a feast often involved the entire community, and the elderly, with their accumulated wisdom and gentle guidance, played a crucial role. An old woman might oversee the making of special breads or pastries, sharing traditional recipes passed down through generations. Her experienced eye would ensure the dough was perfectly kneaded, the spices just right. An old man might be consulted on the best way to smoke a ham or prepare a large roast. His knowledge of butchery and preservation methods invaluable. While they might not do the heavy lifting, their expertise was essential. This active participation in the planning and execution, even in a supervisory role, brought a sense of purpose and inclusion. They were vital parts of creating the magic. Scholars of medieval banquets note the immense effort and community involvement in these large-scale culinary endeavors. When the feast itself began, the atmosphere was electric. The tables, perhaps set up in the village hall, the Lord's manor, or simply a large open space, would groan under the weight of food rarely seen in such abundance. Roasted meats, fresh bread, cheese, perhaps even a special sweet or two would be laid out. For the elderly, who often subsisted on simpler fare, the sight and smell of such a bounty were a feast for the senses. The richness of the food, the rare indulgence of ale or wine, was a physical joy that nourished both body and spirit. They would savor every bite, every sip, knowing how precious these moments of plenty truly were. This simple abundance, a stark contrast to daily scarcity, brought a profound sense of gratitude and pleasure. The social aspect of feasts was equally important. It was a time for villagers who lived miles apart to gather, to exchange news, to mend old rifts, and to strengthen communal bonds. The elderly would be given places of honor, often at the head of the table, a clear sign of their respected status. They would share stories, laugh loudly, and perhaps even join in a quiet song or two. The vibrant chatter, the shared jokes, the feeling of being surrounded by their community and loved ones was a powerful antidote to any loneliness they might experience in their daily lives. They would offer toasts, impart blessings, and receive deferential attention, all of which contributed to a profound sense of being cherished and valued. Music and dancing were an integral part of medieval feasts, and even if the elderly could no longer participate in the energetic jigs, they found immense joy in the spectacle. The lively tunes of pipes and drums, the swirling colors of the dancers, the sheer exuberance of the young people, these sights and sounds were infectious. An old woman might tap her foot to the rhythm, a quiet smile playing on her lips, remembering her own youth. An old man might clap his hands along with the music, his eyes bright with amusement. The shared laughter and the collective joy radiating from the crowd were deeply uplifting. It was a moment when the hardships of life were momentarily forgotten, replaced by pure, unadulterated merriment. The communal energy of such an event was truly invigorating. Beyond the immediate sensory pleasures, feasts held a deeper significance for the elderly. They were tangible expressions of community resilience and shared survival. To have made it through another year, another harvest, another winter, and to be able to celebrate together was a testament to their collective strength. These gatherings reinforced the bonds of kinship and neighborhood, reminding everyone that they were part of a larger supportive network. For the elderly, whose wisdom and experience had often guided the community through difficult times, witnessing this collective joy was a profound affirmation of their contribution. The feeling of belonging to a vibrant, interconnected group, united in celebration, was a powerful source of happiness, a radiant glow that lasted long after the last morsel was eaten and the last song faded into the night. Number 4. Elder Goals Respect. Edition. In a world that valued accumulated wisdom and practical experience above almost all else, the medieval elderly held a position of profound respect and deference within their communities. This wasn't merely polite acknowledgement, it was a deeply ingrained cultural practice that imbued their later years with a strong sense of worth, purpose, and quiet joy. To be looked up to be sought out for advice, and to be treated with honor was a powerful antidote to the physical frailties that often accompanied old age. An old woman, perhaps named Agnes, her hair a silver halo around a face etched with the lines of 100 harvests, would find immense satisfaction in being the village's unofficial arbiter of disputes. When a quarrel broke out over a property boundary or a shared resource, people would seek her out, not for her physical strength, but for her impartiality, her long memory of past agreements, and her understanding of human nature. She would listen patiently, her gaze steady and knowing, offering advice that was both fair and wise, based on decades of observing village life. The resolution of a conflict under her guidance, the quiet nods of agreement from the disputing parties, brought her a deep sense of accomplishment. Her wisdom was a living tool, actively shaping the harmony of her community, and this recognition was a profound source of joy. Medieval chroniclers often mention elders serving as advisors and judges in local matters, highlighting their moral authority. A grizzled old man, perhaps, named Thorkel, who had once been the strongest blacksmith in the Shire, might now oversee the younger smiths. Though his hammer swings were no longer as powerful, his eye for quality, his knowledge of the metal, and his understanding of the craft remained unmatched. Apprentices would defer to his judgment, seeking his opinion on the tempering of a blade or the strength of a new hinge. His presence in the forge, even if merely observing and offering quiet corrections, ensured the continuation of high standards. The respect in the eyes of the younger craftsman, the genuine deference to his unparalleled experience, was a clear sign of his continued importance. This active recognition of his expertise, even when his physical labor diminished, instilled a powerful sense of enduring worth. He was not just an old man. He was the master, and that mastery brought a deep satisfaction. Beyond specific skills, the elderly were often seen as living repositories of collective memory and tradition. They remembered the good years and the bad, the great floods and the lean famines. They knew the lineage of every family, the history of every plot of land, and the origins of every local custom. This deep knowledge made them invaluable resources for understanding the present and planning for the future. A younger head of household might consult an elder about the best time to plant a certain crop based on past weather patterns, or seek their counsel on how to manage a difficult tenant. The quiet seriousness with which their advice was received, the genuine gratitude for their insights, reinforced their pivotal role in guiding the community. This continuous demand for their wisdom, far from being a burden, was a constant source of affirmation and joy. The simple courtesies extended to the elderly were also a source of quiet happiness, being given the warmest seat by the fire, being offered the choicest morsels of food, or being helped across a muddy path without being asked. These small acts of kindness and respect, ingrained in medieval social norms and appreciation. Children were taught from a young age to honor their elders, to listen to their stories, and to assist them whenever possible. This ingrained respect created a comforting environment, where the elderly felt secure and valued, knowing they were a cherished part of the social structure. These daily affirmations, however subtle, contributed to a pervasive sense of well-being. Even in large gatherings, like village feasts or church services, the elderly would often be given places of honor, a tangible symbol of their standing. They might lead a prayer, offer a blessing, or be the first to speak. Their presence added gravity and legitimacy to any communal event. This public recognition of their age and wisdom, far from being isolating, served to integrate them even more deeply into the heart of the community. It was a visible testament to their long lives, their accumulated wisdom, and their enduring contributions, bringing them a deep and fulfilling joy. To be recognized, celebrated, and deeply respected by those around them was a powerful confirmation of a life well lived, a testament to their resilience, and an undeniable source of profound happiness. This widespread deference truly made them royalty in their own domains. Number 3. Cozy corner bliss. In the often harsh realities of the medieval world, where cold was a constant threat, and shelter often rudimentary, the simple profound comfort of warmth and a secure roof overhead had not merely a necessity. It was a deep, recurring source of joy for the elderly. After a lifetime of laboring outdoors, enduring biting winds, and soaking rains, the peace of a cozy corner by the hearth became a profound luxury, a wellspring of contentment that permeated their final years. It was a sanctuary from the unpredictable elements, a place of safety and warmth. An old woman, perhaps named Rowena, her bones aching from a lifetime of toil, would sink onto a wooden bench by the roaring fire, letting the radiant heat soak into her weary limbs. The flickering light of the flames dancing on the walls, the crackling and popping of the burning wood, the earthy scent of wood smoke mingled with the aroma of simmering stew. These simple sensations created a sensory haven. She might wrap a homespun woolen shawl tightly around her shoulders, feeling its comforting weight, a barrier against the chill. The feeling of absolute warmth, of luxury often denied to the working body during the day, was a source of profound physical and mental relief. This cozy refuge, shielded from the biting wind or the relentless rain, brought a deep, quiet joy, a contentment that radiated from the very core of her being. Medieval homes, though simple, often featured central hearths that were the heart of family life. A grizzled old man, perhaps named Godric, who had spent countless hours exposed to the elements, mending fences in winter or plowing fields under a relentless sun, would find immense satisfaction in the sturdy roof over his head. The thick thatch or rough-hewn timbers were more than just building materials. They were a shield, a promise of security against the unpredictable temper of nature. He might sit near the single small window, watching the rain lash down outside or the snow pile up against the walls, feeling utterly safe and dry within. The mere absence of discomfort, the surety of not being exposed to the elements, was a joy in itself. He might quietly sharpen a tool or mend a piece of leather. The small, repetitive tasks performed in the soothing comfort of his warm home, adding to his feeling of peace and productivity. The sense of belonging to this secure space, cultivated over decades, was deeply comforting. The hearth itself was the literal and metaphorical heart of the medieval home. And for the elderly, it offered a constant, reassuring presence. It was where food was cooked, where stories were told, where families gathered during the long, dark evenings. The steady glow of the embers, even after the flames had died down, provided a sense of continuous warmth and security. An elder might carefully tend the fire, banking the coals for the night, a small ritual that brought a feeling of control and purpose. The warmth provided by the fire was not just physical. It fostered a psychological comfort, a feeling of being protected and cared for. This constant source of heat, a life-giver in the cold medieval climate, brought a profound and steady joy. The security of one's own home, however humble, was also a significant source of contentment. In a transient world, being rooted in a familiar dwelling, surrounded by generations of memories, provided a sense of stability. The worn floorboards, the familiar scent of the timbers, the specific way the light fell through the door at different times of day. These details were comforting in their familiarity. For the elderly who had seen much change in their lives, the unchanging sanctuary of their home was a precious anchor. They might sit by the window watching the daily life of the village unfold, observing without the need to participate actively, knowing their safe haven awaited them. This sense of belonging to a physical space deeply connected to their own history and family was immensely satisfying. Furthermore, the warmth and shelter often meant shared company. The small enclosed spaces of medieval homes meant that families were in close proximity, fostering strong bonds. For the elderly, this meant being surrounded by the sounds and presence of their loved ones, the gentle murmur of conversation, the laughter of children, the quiet breathing of sleeping family members. These ambient sounds contributed to a pervasive sense of warmth and security. They were not alone in their cozy corner. They were an integral part of a living, breathing household. This constant, comforting presence of family, combined with the physical warmth and security of their home, created a profound and enduring sense of bliss. It was a joy born of fundamental needs being met, a deep primal satisfaction that resonated with every fiber of their being. Number 2, memory lane magic. For the medieval elderly, having lived through many decades of life's unpredictable twists and turns, the act of reminiscence was not just a fleeting thought. It was a profound journey, a source of rich emotional tapestry and deep, quiet joy. To revisit the landscapes of their past, to recall triumphs and hardships, to relive moments of love and laughter, was a powerful way to make sense of their long lives and to find renewed meaning in their experiences. This magic of memory, shared or solitary, brought a unique and vibrant happiness. An old woman, perhaps named Ileana, might sit by the fire, her hands busy with a small piece of mending, but her gaze distant, lost in the mists of time. She might remember her own wedding day, the excitement of the preparations, the vibrant colors of the festive clothes, the thrill of her young husband's touch. The memory might be sharp and clear, bringing a ghost of a smile to her lips, a warmth to her heart. Or she might recall the day her first child was born, the pain and then the overwhelming joy of holding a tiny, squalling bundle in her arms. These precious, cherished memories were like tiny embers glowing brightly in the quiet of her mind, providing comfort and a deep sense of a life well lived. She had created a family, she had loved, she had endured, and the recollection of these milestones brought immense satisfaction. Historical records like family chronicles sometimes hint at the importance of remembering lineage and key life events. A grizzled old man, perhaps named Wulfstan, might stare out at the fields he had plowed for decades, his mind traveling back to his youth. He might recall the camaraderie of his fellow laborers, the shared laughter during a harvest festival, the taste of the first ripe berry of summer. He might remember moments of great physical strength, a time when he could lift a heavy beam or wield an axe for hours without tiring. These memories of youthful vigor, of accomplishments, and of shared experiences with friends who might now be long gone, filled him with a mixture of nostalgia and pride. He had contributed, he had toiled, and he had built. He might recall specific events like the year of the great drought and how the community pulled together, or the joy of a particularly abundant harvest. These recollections were not just about the past. They affirmed his strength, his resilience, and his place within the long narrative of his community. The sharing of these memories with younger generations was an especially potent source of joy. When a grandchild asked about the old days, or a young adult sought advice rooted in past experience, the elder would eagerly recount their stories. The telling of tales, whether humorous anecdotes about village characters or somber accounts of past struggles, solidified their role as living historians. The wide-eyed fascination of the children, the thoughtful nods of the adults confirmed the value of their experiences. This act of passing down knowledge, of connecting the present to the past through personal narrative, brought a profound sense of purpose. It was a way of ensuring that their lives, their struggles, and their triumphs would not be forgotten, but would continue to inform and inspire future generations. The respect and attention given to their stories were a powerful affirmation of their enduring worth. Memory also provided a connection to loved ones who had passed on. For the elderly, who had often outlived many family members and friends, remembering those faces, voices, and shared moments was a way to keep them alive in their hearts. An old woman might quietly murmur the name of a beloved child, lost too soon, feeling a pang of sorrow, but also a rush of enduring love. An old man might recall the wisdom of his own father or the boisterous laughter of a long-gone friend. These memories, though sometimes tinged with sadness, were ultimately a testament to the depth of their capacity for love and connection. They were a reminder of the rich tapestry of relationships that had woven through their lives, leaving indelible marks on their souls. Even solitary moments of reminiscence, perhaps, while gazing into the embers of the fire or looking out at the familiar landscape, held a unique peace. It was a time for quiet reflection, for stitching together the disparate threads of a long life into a coherent and meaningful whole. It was a chance to revisit joys, to process lingering sorrows, and to come to terms with the journey they had undertaken. This internal world of memory, rich and vibrant, offered a profound sense of connection to their own history, an understanding of who they were and where they had come from. The magic of memory, accessible to them at any time, was a constant internal wellspring of comfort, validation, and a deep, quiet joy, making their final years a powerful reflection on a life truly lived. Number 1. The Zen of Aging. Life for the medieval, elderly, those who had weathered many seasons, often brought a profound shift in daily rhythm. The back-breaking toil of the fields, the constant worry of a poor harvest, the endless cycle of planting and reaping. For many, these burdens began to lessen with the passage of years. Younger hands, strong and eager, took up the plow and the loom, not out of neglect or a wish to sideline the elders, but out of a deep-seated respect for the elders' lifetime of contributions. This changing of the guard, this gradual release from the relentless physical demands that defined much of medieval existence, was not a sign of becoming useless. It was, for many, a liberation, a profound untethering from the constant struggle for survival that characterized so much of life. An old woman, her fingers gnarled and stiff from decades of spinning wool, kneading dough, and tending the family hearth, might now spend her days by the fire watching the embers glow with a mesmerizing silent dance. The warmth on her skin, a simple comfort against the chill of stone and wood, could bring a deep, quiet contentment that perhaps she had never truly savored in her bustling youth. She might observe the patterns of light and shadow shifting across the packed earth floor, as the sun moved across the sky, filtering its rays through the smoke hole in the ceiling. The gentle murmur of daily life around her, the rhythmic clatter of pots and pans, the distant bleating of sheep from the common pasture, the uninhibited laughter of her grandchildren playing just outside the door, became the soothing soundtrack to her newfound peace. This was not idleness, certainly not in the medieval sense of the word, but a period of profound contemplation. The anxieties of youth, the struggles of middle age, the fierce competition for resources, the constant vigilance against illness and famine, these began to recede, replaced by a different kind of awareness, a heightened appreciation for the fleeting beauty of the present moment. The world seen through eyes that had witnessed so much hardship and so much simple beauty took on a deeper, more profound meaning. A grizzled old man, his shoulders stooped and his knees aching from a lifetime of walking behind the oxen building fences and mending tools, might now sit on a worn wooden stool just outside the cottage door. He would feel the full, gentle warmth of the sun on his face, the cool, refreshing breeze on his skin. Sensations that might have been overlooked, even ignored, in the hurried, demanding pace of younger years. He would watch the swallows darting effortlessly through the air, chasing unseen insects with incredible agility. Their acrobatic flight, a simple, mesmerizing marvel. He might listen intently to the wind rustling through the tall wheat fields, a sound that spoke of growth and the promise of the coming harvest, a promise he himself had worked for tirelessly for so many decades. This deep connection to the natural world, now unburdened by the immediate and desperate need to extract a living from it, offered a unique kind of joy, a silent communion with the earth itself. It was a joy born of pure observation, of being utterly present in the moment. Chroniclers of the period sometimes noted how the elderly seemed to possess a quiet wisdom, an inner calm that transcended the daily struggles and anxieties of village life. They were, in a sense, integrated into the very pulse of the land, their bodies mirroring the cycles of nature, their spirits attuned to its subtle rhythms. The spiritual life for the elderly often deepened considerably as they approached the end of their earthly journey. With more time for quiet reflection, thoughts often turned to faith, to the profound hope of the afterlife, and to a closer, more personal connection with the divine. Attending church services, which were central to the social and spiritual fabric of every medieval community, became less about social obligation and more about deep personal solace. The resonant chanting of the monks or the village priest, the ancient scent of frankincense filling the air, the familiar comforting stories from the scriptures, these elements offered profound comfort and a renewed sense of purpose. Beyond the mortal coil, praying was not just a duty or a ritual. It became a personal conversation, a quiet communion that brought immense peace and a sense of being truly heard. For many, the approach of their final years was not a source of dread or despair, but a natural, inevitable progression, a step closer to a promised salvation and eternal rest. This belief, deeply ingrained in medieval society and constantly reinforced by the Church, provided an unwavering anchor in a world filled with uncertainty, disease, and sudden hardship. It was a source of enduring hope that illuminated the path forward, dispelling the shadows of fear and doubt. The elderly often found a new kind of freedom in their less active, more reflective roles. The intense need to impress others, the competitive spirit of youth, the overwhelming burdens of responsibility for feeding and sheltering many mouths. These pressures gradually faded into the background. They could watch their children and grandchildren navigate the very challenges they themselves had overcome, offering gentle guidance when asked, but largely letting them find their own way. There was a deep, quiet satisfaction in seeing their lineage continue, not just surviving but thriving in the world. They were no longer striving relentlessly to achieve or acquire. They were simply existing, observing, and reflecting on the vast tapestry of a life well lived. This quiet existence, often spent in familiar and comforting surroundings, brought a unique kind of contentment. The worn stone of the local church, the familiar faces of lifelong neighbors, the unchanging comforting rhythm of the seasons. These steady constants provided a secure and reassuring framework for their later years. There was a profound beauty in the mundane, a deep sense of belonging that came with a lifetime spent rooted firmly in one place, cultivating connections that ran as deep as ancient trees. This profound connection to home, to community, and to the enduring cycle of life, reinforced by decades of shared experiences and collective survival, created a bedrock of security and inner peace that few younger people could fully grasp. The simple act of breathing, of feeling, the gentle warmth of the sun on a cool morning or the crisp coolness of the evening air could become a profound, almost spiritual experience. Small pleasures, perhaps unnoticed or taken for granted in the hurried hustle of youth and middle age, now took center stage in their daily lives. The intense sweet taste of a carefully preserved berry from last summer's abundant harvests savored slowly on the tongue, the comforting feel of soft homespun wool against aging skin, the quiet, understanding softens. Konenständigen insipidek to an outsider, held immense, immeasurable value for the elderly. Held immense, immeasurable value for the elderly. They were not seeking grand adventures or vast material riches. Their true riches lay in the quiet, often overlooked details of everyday existence. Their bodies might be weaker, their movements slower, their physical world perhaps shrinking, but their inner world often blossomed with a richness born of unparalleled experience and profound reflection. This blossoming was a deep personal joy, a final radiant flowering of the human spirit in the peaceful twilight of a long and challenging life.